The sun shimmered over the blue waters of the coastal marina, reflecting off the surface of a grand white yacht named the Serafina. It was owned by Victoria Hale, one of the richest businesswomen in the city, elegant, powerful, and feared by many. But that morning, her voice echoed angrily across the docks. "For 3 weeks I've been waiting. 30 engineers and not one of you can fix my boat?" She shouted, her heels clicking furiously on the deck. The engineers stood frozen, embarrassed. The yacht's engine had mysteriously stopped working, and despite expensive equipment and countless hours, no one could figure out why. Victoria crossed her arms. "You all claim to be experts, yet my yacht still sits here like a useless piece of metal." Just then, from a small corner near the fishing boats, a man quietly approached. Eli Carter, a poor mechanic in worn-out overalls, carrying a rusty toolbox. He worked repairing old motors and fishermen's engines for just a few dollars a day. Hearing the commotion, he stepped forward and said calmly, "Ma'am, maybe I can take a look?" The dock fell silent. Then came laughter. One of the engineers scoffed, "You? You fix this yacht? Do you even know what kind of engine this is?" Victoria smirked, half amused. "If 30 professionals couldn't do it, what makes you think you can, poor man?" Eli didn't flinch. He simply replied, "Sometimes it's not about having the best tools, ma'am. It's about understanding how things work." His words made Victoria pause for a second. There was something humble yet confident in his tone. Then she laughed lightly. "All right then, Mr. Genius. If you're so smart, fix my boat. But if you fail, you'll clean my docks for a week." Eli nodded without hesitation. "Deal." The crowd of workers and engineers gathered, whispering among themselves as Eli walked toward the magnificent yacht. The sun glinted off its polished surface as the poor mechanic placed his old toolbox beside it. He took a deep breath, gazing at the massive engine that had defeated 30 experts. Everyone watched in silence. For them, it was impossible. For Eli, it was a challenge, a chance to prove that true skill has nothing to do with money, but everything to do with heart. As the crowd gathered around, Eli stepped aboard the Serafina with quiet determination. The smell of oil and salt water mixed in the air while the waves gently rocked the massive yacht. The other engineers folded their arms, whispering among themselves, certain that this poor man was about to embarrass himself. Eli opened his old, dented toolbox and carefully selected a few tools. His hands were rough, stained from years of hard labor, yet every movement he made was steady and precise. He didn't rush. Instead, he listened, really listened, to the faint hum of the machinery beneath his feet. "Does he think listening will fix it?" One of the engineers laughed. Ignoring the comments, Eli leaned down and started tracing the wires that connected the yacht's ignition system to its engine core. He noticed tiny burn marks along the wiring panel, something the others had dismissed as minor. But Eli knew better. Every sound, every mark, told a story to a mechanic who understood machines like they were living things. He unscrewed a small metallic cover near the control panel, a part most people never touched. Beneath it, he found a hidden circuit relay, one wire completely burnt out. It was so deep in the system that scanners couldn't detect it. Eli smiled faintly. "There you are." He cut a piece of copper wire from his own tool bag, stripped it with his knife, and carefully connected it to the damaged section. His hands moved quickly but confidently, wrapping the repair with tape and sealing it tight. Then he looked at Victoria. "Try turning the key, ma'am." She frowned but did as he said. The moment the key turned, the engine coughed once, and then, with a powerful roar, came to life. The yacht's turbine spun smoothly, the deck vibrating as if the boat had woken from a long sleep. Everyone froze. The same engine that 30 engineers had failed to start was now running perfectly, fixed by a man with a rusted toolbox and a humble heart. Victoria's eyes widened. How did you do that?" Eli wiped his hands on his cloth, smiling softly. "Sometimes, Mum, the biggest problems hide in the smallest places." The crowd erupted in gasps and whispers. The poor mechanic had done the impossible. For a long moment, the only sound at the dock was the smooth, steady hum of the Serafina's engine. Everyone stood frozen, even Victoria, the proud owner who never let anyone outshine her. The same woman who had mocked the poor mechanic was now staring at him in awe. Victoria finally spoke, her tone softer than before. "You've just saved me millions. No one else could do it. Tell me, where did you learn all this?" Eli looked down, wiping his greasy hands on his old rag. "My father used to fix boats right here in this harbor," he said quietly. "He taught me everything I know," he said. "Engines are like people. They don't stop working unless something inside them breaks. I just learned to listen." His words touched something deep inside Victoria. She had spent years surrounded by experts, money, and power. Yet none of it gave her the peace that came from Eli's simple truth. She opened her handbag, pulled out a blank check, and said, "Write any amount you want. You've earned it." But Eli shook his head immediately. "No, ma'am. I didn't do this for money. I just couldn't stand seeing something broken stay broken." The engineers behind him looked at the ground, ashamed. They had mocked him, doubted him, and now stood defeated, not by a competitor, but by a humble soul who valued heart over ego. Victoria watched Eli with new eyes. "You're different," she said softly. "You could have demanded anything, money, fame, a job at my company, but you didn't." Eli smiled faintly. "My father used to say, when you fix something, fix it with honesty. The reward will come when it's meant to." For the first time, Victoria smiled sincerely. "Eli, I want you to work for me. You'll have every tool, every resource you need." He hesitated, then replied kindly, "Thank you, ma'am, but I belong here, helping people who can't afford anyone else. That's what my father would have wanted." His words left Victoria speechless. For a woman who had everything, she realized she had just met a man who owned something money could never buy: integrity. A few days later, the marina was quieter. The gossip had died down, but everyone still whispered about the poor mechanic who had done what 30 engineers could not. Eli continued working in his small workshop near the docks, repairing old fishing boats and helping locals who could barely afford him. Life for him was simple and peaceful. One afternoon, as he was tightening a bolt on a fisherman's engine, a familiar black car pulled up near his workshop. Out stepped Victoria Hale, dressed not in her usual elegant suit but in a simple summer dress. Her presence surprised everyone around. People whispered, "That's her, the yacht owner." Eli wiped his hands and smiled. "Good afternoon, ma'am. Boat still running well?" Victoria nodded with a soft smile. "Perfectly. I came here not because of the boat, but because of what you taught me." She handed him a small wooden box. Inside was a gleaming new set of professional tools, each one engraved with golden letters. Eli Carter, the man who fixed the unfixable. Eli's eyes filled with quiet emotion. "Ma'am, this is too much." Victoria shook her head. "No, Eli, it's the least I can do. You reminded me that true genius doesn't come from wealth or education. It comes from passion and humility. You fixed more than my boat. You fixed my pride." Eli smiled warmly. "Sometimes broken things just need someone to care enough to listen." She nodded, touched by his words. "You'll always have a place on my team if you ever change your mind." As Victoria left, she looked back at him one last time, the poor mechanic who had changed how she saw the world. From that day on, people at the docks began treating Eli with newfound respect. They called him the dock's genius, the man with a heart of gold and hands that could bring any machine back to life. Every evening, as the sun dipped behind the waves, Eli would sit by the harbor, gazing at the Serafina sailing gracefully again, and he would whisper with a small smile, "It's never about being rich. It's about being right and doing what's right."